Elisa's search for answers about her father's disappearance leads her deep into the jungle, where dark secrets and dangerous experiments await. As she uncovers the truth, she must fight not just for survival, but to protect the future from a terrifying force. Stay with us as Elisa's journey unfolds. What she discovers in the heart of the jungle will challenge everything she knows and might just change the course of history. You won't want to miss what happens next. The dusty room smelled of old paper and leather. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the wooden walls, casting long golden beams onto the floor. Elisa sat cross-legged on the mat, her fingers tracing the edges of a tattered map she had discovered in her father's study. It was the last relic of a man who had disappeared from her life years ago. Her father, a scientist, an explorer of things no one else dared understand. The map was frayed, its edge curling with age. A deep red X marked the center, a place in the jungle Elisa had never seen. The jungle, the mysterious, untamed heart of the land that her father had often spoken about, with a gleam in his eyes. There were stories of ancient spirits and secret paths of treasure hidden for centuries, but Elisa had always dismissed them as folklore, until now. Her fingers brushed the symbols etched on the map, cryptic drawings, half-faded lines, and hidden coordinates. One thing was clear, this map was no ordinary piece of paper. It was a guide, a message left behind for her, perhaps for reasons she didn't yet understand. Her heart raced as she traced the route. There was a red mark, a circle surrounding the X. It seems to be drawn with a sense of urgency. "What did you find, father?" Elisa whispered to the silent room. The jungle beyond the village had always felt distant, even dangerous. But now the pull was undeniable. She couldn't shake the feeling that her father's disappearance was tied to the what lay hidden in that jungle. That night, as she lay in bed, the map pressed against her chest. Elisa made a decision. She would go. It didn't matter that the villagers would think her foolish. She had to know what her father had uncovered. It was the only way to find the answers she so desperately sought. If you are enjoying the story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stick with us till the end. You won't want to miss the shocking twist that's coming up. The jungle felt alive as Elisa trekked deeper into its heart. Her green tunic clung to her skin with the humidity, and her long braids whipped against her back with each step. The path was narrow, and the dense foliage seemed to close in around her. The chirping of birds and rustling of unseen creatures, the only sounds she could hear. Elisa's breath was steady, her sense heightened. She knew the jungle like the back of her hand. Her father had taught her to navigate its labyrinthine paths, how to listen to the whispers of the wind, and how to spot the tiniest signs of danger. But today felt different. The jungle felt heavier, as if it were watching her, waiting. Hours passed, the air thickening with each step. Finally, she spotted it through the trees. Something metallic, an unnatural gleam that stood in stark contrast to the surrounding greenery. A massive steel structure loomed before her, towering above the trees. Its cold, angular shape was out of place, like a scar in the landscape. Elisa's heart skipped a beat. This had to be it, the place her father had marked on the map. She approached cautiously, every instinct telling her to be careful. The entrance was guarded, two figures dressed in black tactical gear standing at attention. Elisa crouched behind a thick bush, watching, They didn't appear to be paying attention, their eyes scanning the horizon in an almost mechanical fashion. Elisa knew she couldn't just march in, not with guards present. But she had no intention of turning back. She would find a way inside. Elisa watched the guards for what felt like hours, waiting for an opportunity. Finally, one of them stepped away, heading toward the nearby patrol route. Elisa seized the moment and sprinted toward the structure, her heart pounding in her chest. The door was heavy, rusted, but Elisa's finger found the hidden latch near the side. With a soft hiss, the door slid open, revealing a cool, sterile interior. It was a stark contrast to the humid jungle she had just left. The walls were smooth, metallic, and lined with glowing panels that pulsed with a faint blue light. Elisa stepped inside, her sense on high alert. The air was thick with the scent of chemicals, and the low hum of machinery vibrated through her bones. She moved cautiously, her eyes scanning every corner. The silence was oppressive. As she walked deeper into the structure, she felt something shift in the air, an odd energy that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. And then she saw it, a large open room. It was lined with the tanks filled with a glowing green liquid. The figures inside were humanoid, but their proportions were wrong. Their limbs were elongated, their features sharp and unnatural. Her heart sank as she realized the truth. These were not just experiments. These were people. No, not people anymore. They had been transformed, twisted into something else. She recoiled, backing away, but then something caught her eye. Movement in the corner of the room. One of the figures inside the tanks had opened its eyes. Its glowing gaze met hers, and Elisa's blood ran cold. Before Elisa could react, a voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't be here." Elisa spun around, her knife already in her hand. A man stood in the doorway, his face obscured by a helmet. He was tall and imposing, dressed in black tactical gear with a badge that Elisa didn't recognize. "What is this place?" Elisa demanded, her voice steady, despite the fear bubbling up inside her. "What are you doing to them?" The man stepped forward, his hand clasped behind his back. He studied her with a cold, calculating gaze. "This is a place of progress," he said flatly. "You wouldn't understand what you are seeing." Elisa's grip tightened on her knife. "These are people. You are turning them into monsters. You think you are playing God." The man's lips twitched into a smile. "You are naive," he said, his voice betraying no emotion. "This is the future. Enhanced intelligence, endurance. These creatures, as you call them, will be humanity's new foundation." "No," Elisa whispered, her stomach turning. "This isn't progress. It's a nightmare." The man's eyes flickered with something, anger perhaps, but it was gone in an instant. He stepped closer, his hand brushing against the edge of his rifle. "You are not living here, Elisa." The man lunged, but Elisa was faster. With a sharp, practiced move, she slashed her knife through the air, catching him off guard. He stumbled back, clutching his arm, but Elisa didn't wait for him to recover. She turned and ran, her heart hammering in her chest as the alarm blared to life. The sound was deafening, and the red lights flashing along the walls made the entire facility feel like a trap closing around her. Her legs burned as she sprinted down the corridors, her mind racing. She had to get out of here. She had to warn the village, but the guards would be on her tail. She knew that much for sure. She reached the exit, her breath ragged. The door slid open with a hiss, and she burst out into the jungle. The cool air hit her face, but there was no time to rest. The guards were already on her heels, shouting commands into their radios. Elisa dove into the underbrush, using the dense foliage to her advantage. The jungle was her home. She knew it better than anyone. She could lose them. She had to. By nightfall, Elisa had found refuge in a small clearing near the river. She was exhausted, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. The figures in those tanks, the experiment, they were people, altered beyond recognition. She had to stop them, but how? An elder Kufi had been following her since her return to the village, sensing that something was wrong. He found her sitting by the fire, her face pale, her hands trembling. "Elisa," he said softly, sitting beside her. "You've seen it, haven't you? The truth." Elisa nodded, her voice hoarse. "They're not human anymore. They were human, but now they are something else." Kufi sighed deeply, his old eyes filled with sorrow. "The corporation has been conducting experiments for years. We've kept this secret, hidden deep in the jungle, but they have never stopped. They believe they can create the perfect soldier, an army of unthinking, unfeeling warriors." "They were human," Elisa repeated, the weight of her words heavy. "You knew this was happening. Why didn't you stop them?" "We've tried," Kufi said, his voice low, "but their power is immense. They control everything, every resource, every tool. The only way to stop them is to destroy their creation. But they will not give up. They will keep coming." The next morning, Elisa stood at the edge of the village, her eyes scanning the horizon. The villagers were gathering, but there was no time for speech. The attack came without warning. The corporation soldiers descended on the village with the force of a storm. They moved with precision, their rifles raised, their faces obscured by masks. They came in waves, sweeping through the village like a dark tide. Elisa fought alongside with the villagers, her knife flashing as she moved through the chaos. But it was clear, the soldiers were too strong, too fast. They were enhanced, just like the figure in the tanks. Elisa fought with everything she had, but the realization hit her hard. The villagers couldn't win without help. She needed to find the heart of the operation, their lab, their command center. She had to destroy it, and to do that she needed to reach the jungle's deepest secrets. The battle had raged on for hours, but Elisa had not given up. By the time the sun set, the village had become a battleground, its streets filled with the echoes of gunfire and cries of defiance. Elisa stood, bloodied but unbroken, beside the elder. "We've lost many," he said quietly, "but the fight is far from over." Elisa clenched her fists, the anger of the day fueling her resolve. "They want a war? They'll get one," she muttered. As the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, Elisa knew the jungle would be her ally. The fight for future was just beginning, and she would stop at nothing to protect it.